We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Wednesday. We had a hell of a day yesterday. A lot of things to talk about. A lot of things happened. Had a chance with my wife to go watch my granddaughter for an hour or two. Dad was off at a meeting, and we got time to spend with little Junie. And it was a lot of fun. It's always a lot of fun. It was funny, every time we go up there, she wants to play a lion. And of course, she wants me to be the meat. Still fucking weird in my mind. But anyway, she seemed to have gotten sensitive that I might be getting sensitive over me having to play this role all the time. So she comes over to me and she starts talking to me and saying, I don't want you to feel bad about playing meat. And I'm thinking, okay, she's going to take me off the hook here and we're going to do something different. And she just looks at me and she goes, It's okay, Grandpa. It's okay. I like it when you play meat. So that's what you're going to do. I felt like I was talking to a mob boss, a 4-year-old mob boss. Anyway, we had all kinds of shit happening yesterday. I want to thank Eric for joining me yesterday on the program. Always makes things easier when I have a listener guest. They always have some great insights. Eric, obviously, very knowledgeable. And again, if you're on TikTok or YouTube, be sure to check his stuff out at Analytical Iowan on YouTube or TikTok. It's got some good stuff, and it's great to have him on the show as well. But we had the closing arguments in Donald Trump's criminal trial. Went pretty well for the prosecution. The defense, not so well. We'll talk more about that. We also had a situation where Jack Smith set up a trap for Aileen Cannon, the judge in the Florida trial for the classified documents. She took the bait. That's going to be interesting too. We've got a lot of things to talk about. Of course, we have some emails to get to, so let's do that first and foremost. First one says, Hi, Boomer. Yesterday, my wife told me she saw a bunch of librarians booing Trump. Now, let's pause and not judge. I will tell you, this woman is brilliant with languages and people. She learned a whole foreign language once just to prepare for a trip there. But she's not great with math or anything related to scale, and she can't see well. She also doesn't follow this stuff like we do. So I spent a minute surprised that so many librarians would be gathered and that Trump would talk to them. Seemed like a poor choice for him. Of course, it was the libertarians, and I corrected her, and we got laughing. By the time we were done, Trump was addressing 20,000 women that all look like the quintessential 1960s librarian with cat-eye glasses and old lady hair. So by the time we were laughing so hard, we were almost crying, and its stupidity just like that has kept us married 30 plus years. Thank you, Boom. Without your show, I'd be losing my goddamn mind right now. Best Garage Door Jeff. P.S. Fuck Trump. I knew he'd get a P.S. in there one way or another. Thank you, Garage Door Jeff. I appreciate that. As we get older, we misconstrue things. We don't hear things quite as well as we once did. I'm just glad that she said librarians, because in this part of the country, people can't even pronounce the word library or librarian. It's library. Anyhow, thanks, Jeff. All right, the next one starts out, Hey, Mike, great run of shows you've been having lately with the new blood, i.e. new listeners being on. I always look forward to your insights, and it's nice to hear from more listeners along with the regulars. I saw the attached pic from so-called Truth Social posted on Threads, and it shows Don the Con seeing how the criminal justice system works, especially for the rest of us. He's past the fuck around part now. He's heading to the find out part, and I'm here for it. I feel the same way. He's going to get convicted, and multiple times. Also, on a Texas and Arkansas note, multiple storms hit the areas, and lucky for Governors Abbott and Sanders, and the many MAGA voters. Our President Biden is a president for all Americans and not a political thug like the soon to be convicted 45. Your buddy, Jace from Texas. And Jace, of course, has been on the show multiple times. Last I heard, there was a lot of power outages there because of the storm. Thank God you got your own fucking grid, huh? Anyway, thanks, Jace. I'm sure we'll talk to you sometime soon. All right. The next one says, Hi, Mike. I was watching a couple of your TikToks today, and you say Donald Trump is losing it. The storms are coming for him. I can feel it. Everybody can feel it. I was watching a documentary on him that was made in the early 2000s, and he losing then. He was 28 and already filed for bankruptcy multiple times. I'm just trying to figure out how you can become a billionaire by filing bankruptcy multiple times 40 years ago, but ever since then, he's just been a loser and a grifter in everything. It says a lot about how our country looks at the cult of personality. I think the only money he has is the money he got from The Apprentice. He's very nervous and worried about this coming week. And I can't wait, Rhonda. Well, he's even more nervous now that we've gotten past the closing arguments. He did not like how that went. He thought his team should go last. Frankly, it wouldn't have mattered if the defense team had gone last or the prosecution had gone last, because the defense team didn't do shit in their closing arguments. In fact, got in trouble with the judge. We'll talk more about that in a bit. All right, the next one is from Steve in Canada. He says, Hi, Mike. Great show as always yesterday with Eric in regards to Trump possibly being convicted this week. I really believe that at some point Trump will flee to another country. I'm not sure what trial he would pick. He is so weak and thin-skinned. I wondered if the first chink in his armor will make him act like a baby and take his toys and run. What do you think? Steve in Canada. Well, people have suggested that before, that he might bolt and leave the country. And that is a normal tendency of people that are of narcissistic temperament. But Donald Trump has a problem there. He's easily recognizable just about anywhere he went in the world because people around the world hate his fucking guts. Where is he going to go? Some people might say Russia, but what use does Vladimir Putin have for him now that he has no money, no power, and he's infamous? Same goes for Saudi Arabia. Same goes for North Korea. There isn't many places he can go. And there's another issue to this. He has Secret Service surrounding him. Now, as much as they're there to protect Donald Trump, they are law enforcement agency. Now, if they let Donald Trump leave the country, they're going to be on the hook. They're going to be in trouble. If this guy is fleeing trials or convictions, and the Secret Service allows him to do that, they better go with that motherfucker, because they're going to go to jail for being complicit with Donald Trump fleeing the country. I don't know if Donald Trump will flee the country because I don't think he has enough money. I don't know where he would go, where he would be welcome. And I just don't think the Secret Service has the courage to risk their careers and lives by allowing him to do it. Steve, thank you very much. All right, the next one says, Hello, Mike. I sent you an email a couple of days ago. It's the economy, stupid, was the theme. I mentioned that I tried to convince Trumpers that a second Trump term would put them in even more financial difficulty. Not much luck. They dig in and make stupid comments. And then he sent me a YouTube link to Robert Reich, who's a very intelligent man. You should listen to him. I haven't listened to the link at all, but I know of Robert Reich and I know what he's talking about. And in terms of the economy, I've gotten a lot of information out of Robert Reich, so I have a lot of respect for him. He goes on to say, seems to me the Democratic Party and anyone concerned with the future of this country should hear this. Tom. Good advice, Tom. Yes, I think we should always listen to Robert Reich. I think we could make him the fucking president and be better off all around. All right, the next one. Hi, Mike. Scott from Redneck County, Pennsylvania here, reading and listening to the maggots. I've come to believe that among all the shitty things Trump has done to our country, there are three things that stand out as the most damaging. First, he undermined public confidence in the safest, most secure, and most accurate election system in the world. He expected that he was going to lose in 2016, so before the election, he started, "If I lose, it was rigged" bullshit. Due to a fluke, um, he got the Electoral College win. He cranked the same crap up on 2020 because, again, he knew he was going to lose. He did lose big time, but the court fights with no evidence or proof just convinced a bunch of idiots that he was right. His second most damaging thing was that he undermined public confidence in the criminal justice system, saying it was weaponized against him and the whole thing was a witch hunt, even though his crimes were blatant and obvious. Thirdly, and presently, he's undermining public confidence in our court system because he's caught up in it and he's going to try to fry his worthless ass. The claim is bolstered by a sham Supreme Court of his own making, three basic institutions on which our country's honor and integrity are founded, and he's got his idiots believing they're all corrupt. That damage will last long after he's gone. Thank you for being a voice of reason in the midst of madness. Well, thank you very much. He has done all those things, but I think the judicial system has some culpability in this thing too. Even though Donald Trump placed them on the Supreme Court, these people had the opportunity to do the right thing. It's not like they're going to lose their job if they piss off Donald Trump. They've got lifetime appointments, and we can see how hard it is to get them out of their jobs. Damn near impossible. So they could have gotten there and seen what was going on and done the right thing, but apparently they're part of this cult of personality and they are corrupt too. And in the judicial systems, we have plenty of Trump appointees and other Republican appointees that aren't doing their job properly, say Aileen Cannon down in Florida or some of the others. I think in terms of our judicial system, our Congress, and the Supreme Court, I think um, even prior to Donald Trump, there were some issues, some questionable behavior, some lack of integrity and credibility. I think what Donald Trump did is he enhanced it and brought it to the surface for all to see. I think a lot of this stuff was going on before we even knew about it. Do you think Clarence Thomas, after being in this Supreme Court position for 30 plus years, think this is the first time, the last 5 years, that he's been grifting? I don't think so. Same with Alito. Same with John Robert. I don't think so. Do you think we've had judges, federal judges, and the like around the country that did shitty jobs? Probably. We just haven't heard about it because Donald Trump wasn't involved. I do blame Donald Trump for virtually everything that's wrong with this country right now and those people who follow him. But I think as much as being at fault for enhancing existing problems, I think that's what he's done. The upside to what he's done, he's exposed it to the public. It's no longer under the radar. It's out there. We all know it's out there. And now we have to do something about it. I really do think that is a positive thing that Donald Trump did. We have a country and a government that's full of corruption and has been for decades. Well, now we know what it is and where it is. So it's up to us to fix that shit. We start by voting Democrat in November, and then we get on the Democrats to start straightening shit out. All right, the next one. Hello, Mike over the road. Russell here, coming to you from McDonough, Georgia today. I have sent you a link to an article in San Antonio, Texas News. It shows a political mailer sent to Republican voters in Texas threatening to notify Trump if they don't vote. Is this even legal? Seems very Nazi-ish to me. Would be interested in your thoughts. Also, RIP Bill Walton. Keep up your good work and take care over the road, Russell. Yeah, I did read that, and it sounds like voter intimidation more than anything, which oddly enough would be illegal. We're talking about people in desperate straits here. He knows he has a certain amount of people that will vote for him, but if they won't get off their asses and vote, then he's got a problem. Well, he's got problems anyway. But if you remember, we were hearing from Jace, who was down in Texas, who said that there's problems with Democrats getting out to vote. I don't know if that's the case with Republicans, but Clearly, Donald Trump is nervous and he's not opposed to trying to intimidate voters. Imagine that, saying, you better vote or Donald Trump's going to find out. I'm telling daddy, so the fuck what? All right. Next one says, hey, Mike, I was speaking with an acquaintance of mine. He's not a Trumplafuck, but a worrywart. You mentioned to me that the Vegas odds currently have Dirty Diaper Donnie as a very slight favorite to win the November election. I started laughing and told him it sounds like a moneymaker. He insists that Vegas doesn't get duped very easily, and this is real. I don't know if anyone else out there is worried about this, but I'm here to say not to bother. Vegas has one goal in mind to make sure money comes in on both sides, regardless of whether it's a sporting event or anything else. The only thing this tells me is the vocal minority is more than stupid enough to bet on a loser. This is the time to lay your money on Biden because once these guilty verdicts are handed down, the odds are going to be adjusted. I actually just put down a few shekels on Biden victory and advise others to do the same while the odds are in our favor. If the indictments don't destroy the megalomaniac, narcissistic demagogue, the June 27th debate certainly will. I'm looking forward to that with sort of a draconian satisfaction. He's going to be caught in lies and stumble incoherently over his own convoluted thoughts to a point where even his most ardent supporters are going to be embarrassed. Yeah, I hadn't heard about the odds between Biden and Donald Trump. But when we talk about betting in Las Vegas and we talk about odds, it's the same thing we're seeing with the media. There's no money in it for them to say Biden's going to wipe Donald Trump out. If that were to happen, nobody would bet on Donald Trump. Everybody would bet on Joe Biden. And their job is to make money, to create intrigue, battle of titans, if you will. That's what the media is doing. That's what Las Vegas is doing. Yeah, if I was in Vegas, I would make that bet on Biden. I have no question in my mind that Joe Biden will beat Donald Trump. And not only beat him, but beat him decisively. Decisively. It's not even going to be close. I'd be curious as to what happens if Donald Trump doesn't end up being the nominee. Is the bet off then? Because I think Joe Biden would beat any Republican who shows up, especially now that we're so close to the election. Because we're so close to the election, anybody they put up, nobody that we know of has enough support, and the Trumplafucks probably wouldn't vote for him if he's not Donald Trump. None of them can beat Joe Biden. The Republicans have destroyed themselves by hanging so closely with Donald Trump. So I'd take that bet in a fucking minute. I'm not going back to Vegas that I know of, but I do know some people down there. I do know one person down there, but I'm guessing she doesn't do a lot of betting. Talking about Old Soul, she lives in Las Vegas. I'm I'm not a big gambler. You know, if I go to the casinos with my wife, I'll play some nickel or penny slots, and I'm pretty conservative. I never lose much money. I never win much money. It's more of entertainment than anything. If I go there with $100 and I lose $100, I'm not disappointed because I kind of expected it. If I go in there and come out with the same amount I went in, that's a win to me. If I make $20, $50, $70, I'm ecstatic. That's the extent of my gambling. But Donald Trump beating Joe Biden, that is a sucker's bet. And I would go deep in my pocket on that one. All right, the last email comes from Philly Paul. Just a recommendation to anyone out there who wants to make a buck off this. Now is the time to do so. Oh, this is a carryover of the one I was reading. I'm nowhere near Vegas, but did manage to get 10 to 11 odds on a Biden victory through an online site. I look forward to hearing what you think about it. Philly Paul. Well, I agree with you 100%. I'm just, I'm just imagining Old Soul with a side hustle now, taking bets. See, Old Soul's got some integrity. She wouldn't be a bookie. I know she wouldn't do that. I don't even think it's legal. and she is a law-abiding citizen, no question, although she hangs out in prisons now and again. Um, Philly, Paul, I agree with you 100%. It's a sucker's bet. No way Joe Biden doesn't beat Donald Trump by a lot. All right. Now, yesterday was a big day because the closing arguments in Donald Trump's criminal hush money trial, um, and it may have stunned some experts with their extreme length. But legal expert Norm Eisen said there's no other way the prosecution could do it. Now, the defense came out, they went about 2.5 hours. And the prosecution was going like 4.5 hours, maybe closer to 5 hours, which seems extreme. And you put yourself in a tough situation when you do that. You don't want to put the jurors to sleep or piss them off by keeping them there longer than necessary. But as Norm Eisen will point out, it was crucial that they ferret out all of the details of this case so the jury knows exactly what's up. Now, this Norm Eisen appeared on CNN Tuesday night as a Manhattan District Attorney's Office prosecutor, Joshua Steinglass, wrapped his falsifying business records case with an hours long recount of the evidence presented against Trump. Eisen said, "It felt like we reviewed all 200 plus exhibits. It was painful, but I thought it was necessary." Eisen suggested the prosecution was prudent not to weigh in on each element in their quest to shoulder the burden of proof. "If the jury says, 'I'll stay till 8 p.m., you argue until 7:59, said Eisen, and the overwhelming weight of the evidence that was the prosecution's approach. Trump has pleaded not guilty to the charges. In closing, Trump's attorney Todd Blanche detailed his own lengthy argument against the prosecution's case. The defense honed in on three critical issues, Eisen said. Eisen summarized it. Blanche argued that the district attorney's office had not proved the business records were falsified, that Trump intended fraud, or that he was involved in election conspiracy cover-up. Well, that's all well and good, but the fact is the prosecution did prove that. They used an inductive approach, Eisen said. The prosecution took the exact opposite approach. Eisen also noted that as Steinglass recreated his timeline for Trump's alleged crimes, the jury appeared to hang in there. And that was kind of an interesting thing. The reports I was getting, of course, it's not on television. We didn't see it. But the reports we were getting was that in spite of the fact that it went as long as it did, that the jury seemed awake and aware and attentive to what this Josh Steinglass was saying. You know, and that's part of the things about being a trial attorney is to be able to tell a story and make it interesting enough and compelling enough for people to stay awake and watch it, even if it is 4 or 5 hours. And that's apparently what he did. He covered all the things he wanted to cover. Now, one of the other problems for Donald Trump's team yesterday, once again, Donald Trump's lawyer, Todd Blanche, got himself in trouble. And I honestly think that this was a calculated risk for him. I think he knew he was going to get in trouble. He just wanted to say something that would stick in the heads of the jurors. I don't think it worked. Justice Juan Marchand lashed out at Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's attorney, for making an outrageous and highly inappropriate statement during his closing remarks. Now, as Blanche was finishing his summation in Trump's hush money trial on Tuesday, he told the jury they shouldn't be sending a man to prison. The prosecution quickly objected, and the judge sustained it. After the jury was dismissed from the courtroom, the prosecution asked for the judge to instruct the jurors to disregard Blanche's remark. Marchand said to Mr. Blanche, "This is the judge." He said, "I think that was outrageous, Mr. Blanche. Someone who's been a prosecutor as long as you should know. It's hard for me to imagine how that was accidental in any way." Marchand asked the prosecution to draft a statement for the jury. So it was so egregious and so inappropriate that the prosecution was able to explain what happened there, why it happened. And this is not good news for the defense. This has been going on a lot. Remember, when he first started the case, Todd Blanche was frustrating the judge, Judge Juan Marchand, and he told Todd Blanche that he was starting to question his credibility, that he was losing his credibility in this case before the case really even started. That's a red flag, and that is not good news for an attorney. And later on, there was a time when Judge Juan Marchand cleared the courtroom of the jury and the media, and he admonished Todd Blanche again. So at least 3 or 4 times during this trial, the judge has had problems with the defense attorney, Todd Blanche. This doesn't help the case at all. It will have an impact on the jury. The jury will have seen this stuff happening and understand that some of the things that the defense is doing is underhanded. Some of the things that Donald Trump has done has been disrespectful and insulting to the judge and the jury by falling asleep and acting out and sighing and rolling his eyes and all these sorts of things. The jury will decide whether or not he is guilty of these crimes, and I'm convinced that he will be convicted of multiple crimes. But the amazing thing to me about this is, as much as Donald Trump has gone after this judge is going to determine the sentence that Donald Trump gets. That's the last guy you want to piss off, especially after you should have learned a lesson in the Letitia James lawsuit. He went after Judge Engoron. He went after Judge Engoron, his family, his staff, and all those things. He went after them hard. The decision comes down, and it's not $5 million, it's not $80 million, it's $454 million. The reason it was that high was all on Donald Trump. Donald Trump could have stopped defaming E. Jean Carroll, but he kept it up. He got hit with a $90 million fine, and then he continued to defame her. Now, the Letitia James thing, again, Donald Trump spent a lot of time going after the judge. The judge wasn't exactly his buddy. But the dumbest thing that Donald Trump did, and I think I probably talked about this yesterday, or maybe it was just on the TikToks, but Donald Trump has twice lost defamation lawsuits to E. Jean Carroll. And just prior to the closing arguments, he made a True Social rant, and he was talking about the judges and all the stuff he's not supposed to do. And for some reason, he brought up E. Jean Carroll again. What an absolute dumb motherfucker. Because E. Jean Carroll's lawyer, Kaplan, don't know her first name, but Kaplan, said, yeah, definitely another defamation lawsuit is on the table. I mean, the whole point of a defamation lawsuit is to try to get the person who's defaming your client to stop. You would think a $5 million fine might give a hint to somebody to stop, but not Donald Trump. And then he gets hit again with an $80 or $90 million lawsuit, and you would think that would teach him a lesson. He's now freaking out. He's starting to get unhinged. He's going after the judges in the current case, and just for good measure, he decides to bring up E. Jean Carroll again. So now it looks like he might get sued again. I mean, you're going to have to get in line to sue or prosecute Donald Trump. Every time he turns around, he creates another mess. We know he's got the problems with the IRS to the tune of maybe $100 million. He's got some other fraud cases that he has to deal with. No way he can juggle all these things. No way he can get through all of these things. Donald Trump is going to be dismantled over the next 6 months to 3 years, because a lot of these cases will take place after the election. And as I've said, that's fine. As long as he gets convicted in this case, that's all we need for the moment. Donald Trump will do the rest as far as taking himself down. Like one of the emailers said, if he actually shows up to this debate on June 27th, which is a month away, if he shows up, he is going to get destroyed. He is going to be frazzled. He's already losing it mentally, and he will have some convictions hanging over his head. He's going to have a tough time controlling himself in these circumstances. All right, we are going to take a quick break, and we will be right back. All right. As I mentioned earlier in the podcast, we've got some activity, some interesting shit going on down in Florida in the classified documents case with Judge Aileen Cannon. Now, I want to preface this by saying something. I get people coming to me all the time, and they'll say, "What about Florida? What about DC? What about Jack Smith? What about Georgia and Fonnie Willis?" Everybody's worried about everything. There's so much shit hanging over Donald Trump's head right now. It's impossible for him to comprehend it. It's overwhelming. It's impossible for him to balance it. And it's also impossible for we Democrats that are excited about all these things. No matter what happens, people will always come to me and say, "That's great, but what if? What if this happens?" Everybody's waiting for the next shoe to fall. The thing about it is I learned a lesson a long time ago, and I'm surprised more people don't do it. But again, it has more to attacking things with emotions and fear and reacting as opposed to trying to think logically about it. Panic is your worst enemy. When you panic, you're going to lose because you're going to make some bad choices. We've got a lot of things going on with Donald Trump. We've got the Manhattan District. We've got Letitia James case. We've got Georgia. We've got DC. We've got Florida. We got all these things, and all of them pose different problems and different perceptions. And people are hearing stories as to why this will never happen or that will never happen, and Donald Trump will get off. I'm just going to tell you this: no matter how smart you are, no matter how centered and grounded you are, if you try to take all of that on at once, it's going to confuse you. You're not going to be able to juggle it. It'll overwhelm you, and your head will be fucked up to no end. I'm just telling you that. The way you approach things like this, whether it be in your life or in this situation regarding politics and Donald Trump, the only way you can do it and get through it and do all the right things, make all the right decisions, and make all the right perceptions is if you've got a million things to do, take the first one, get it done. Focus on that one thing and get it done. Once you get it done and succeed in that, you take that small win and bring it to the next thing. You make that one a win, and now you've got two things to fuel your confidence. And as you go down the line, it will get bigger and bigger, and you'll be more successful further down the line. That is the only way to do it. But people panic and say, "I got to do something right now. Otherwise, I'm going to falter. I'm going to go to my grave because I can't sustain this." That's not true. That's not, nothing like that is going to kill you. You can't panic and you can't try to do everything at once. It just does not work. So if you can't do it that way, the only other option is to do the opposite. And that, of course, is to take it step by step. I bring that up because we're going to talk about Aileen Cannon and in Florida. And we've got people freaking out about that case and all of that. But what you need to do right now, your biggest concern, your biggest focus should be the Manhattan District. The verdict is imminent. We're going to get some conviction. So let's focus on the Manhattan District. We can talk about the other stuff, but let's not fucking worry about it. There's a lot of stuff out there that you can't control. And if you worry about shit you can't control, you're doing yourself a disservice. You just are. So anyway, we've got the Manhattan District. We're getting close to getting a verdict. So let's ride this out, because once that verdict is in, that changes the vibe of everything. Right now, he's not convicted. But when he is a convicted felon, how does that change um, the other three cases? Maybe not directly, but in terms of perception and the whole vibe around it, how it'll affect people who support Donald Trump. There'll be less people that support Donald Trump after the conviction. So do one thing at a time. We're going to wait for the Manhattan District case to come down with a verdict. We'll cheer, we'll be happy, we'll take that win, and we'll use that fuel to win the next one. And maybe the next one is Florida. I mean, it's starting to sound like we've got a little closer to getting Aileen Cannon off the case. And let's be honest, that's the only way we're going to get this fucking thing done. She's doing everything she can to slow walk it, to side with Donald Trump. If she could dismiss this case, she would do it. Now, people have said, why hasn't Jack Smith appealed to the 11th Circuit? Because he's had nothing to appeal. Everything she's done is a paperless thing or a scheduling thing, and none of those things are able to be appealed to the 11th Circuit. So Jack Smith, who is a smart guy, set a trap for Aileen Cannon. Donald Trump's out there talking about how Joe Biden and the FBI are trying to kill him. Well, that's troubling. It's a lie, and it's problematic too, because he's basically sending a message that the FBI and law enforcement are trying to kill him, which in turn puts those folks in danger because of the red meat eating Trump-la-fuck dipshits who will go after them. So Jack Smith, excuse me, does the right thing and ask Aileen Cannon to extend a gag order to Donald Trump to keep the law enforcement safe. Now, Aileen Cannon has two choices. She can either say no, side with Joe Biden or Donald Trump, and then now Jack Smith has something to appeal to the 11th Circuit. Or she can side with Jack Smith and just not enforce it with Donald Trump. And that's what I thought she might do. But as we know from Republicans, they just do the wrong thing. They side with Donald Trump. They're afraid to get on his bad side. They will double down until they fail. And Judge Aileen Cannon may have done fucked herself up. U.S. District Judge Aileen Cannon denied a request from special counsel Jack Smith to modify Donald Trump's bond conditions in his classified documents case. Not only did she deny it, she had an attitude about it. She acted as if she was insulted. Now, in a motion last week, Smith asked Cannon to modify the conditions to clarify that Trump cannot endanger law enforcement officials investigating his case. That seems like a reasonable request, don't you think? The government moves to modify defendant Donald J. Trump's conditions of release to make clear that he may not make statements that pose significant, imminent, and foreseeable danger to law enforcement agents participating in the investigation and prosecution of this case, Smith's motion said. Smith said Trump made statements falsely suggesting that agents were complicit in a plot to assassinate him, which was categorically a lie, referring to the claims the agents were authorized to use deadly force when they went to Mar-a-Lago looking for classified documents. I thought this was going to be a tough choice for Aileen Cannon because she knows she's getting set up here. But on Tuesday, Cannon denied the motion without prejudice for lack of meaningful conferral with the defense. Now, the court finds the special counsel's pro forma conferral to be wholly lacking in substance and professional courtesy. Oh, Jack wasn't nice enough. It should go without saying that meaningful conferral is not a perfunctory exercise. Sufficient time needs to be afforded to permit reasonable evaluations of the request relief by opposing counsel and to allow for adequate follow-up discussion as necessary about the specific factual and legal basis underlying the motion, Cannon wrote. Any future non-emergency motion brought in this case, whether on the topic of release conditions or anything else, shall not be filed absent meaningful, timely, and professional conferral. She warned that. failure to comply with these requirements may result in sanctions. So she told Jack Smith he didn't do it nice enough, he didn't do it properly, and if he did it again, she was going to sanction him. Interesting, isn't it? That was very interesting. Now the question is, what will Jack Smith do and how soon will he do it? What Jack Smith was requesting was reasonable. What Donald Trump did was absolutely true. I mean, it's in print, it's in video. Not only did he do it prior to this pleading, he did it after the pleading. It's not like he did it, it was a one off thing. He's continuing to do it. Fuck, he brings up E. Jean Carroll for that matter. But Aileen Cannon may have put herself in a corner that she can't get out. If Jack is in a position to refer this to the 11th Circuit, he can make this complaint on this decision, but he can also now bring in all the other complaints he's had, complaints that weren't necessarily um, um, appealable, but he can bring that in to show a track record or a history of malfeasance or misbehavior or biased behavior. I hope to God that's what they do. That seems like what he did. He set this up knowing exactly what was going to happen. And if that's the case, we should see an appeal to the 11th Circuit sometime soon. I don't know that for sure, but that seems to be the next step in the progression. And it's about fucking time, don't you think? Now, going back to the trial with Donald Trump and the closing arguments that were delivered in the hush money trial in Manhattan yesterday, former President Donald Trump took to his Truth Social platform to angrily rant that Judge Juan Marchand did not allow him to submit the legal defense that he wanted. Yeah, he kind of did. The greatest case I've ever seen for reliance on counsel, and Judge Marchand will not, for whatever reason, let me use that as a defense in this rigged trial, Trump wrote. Another term advice of counsel defense. So what's that mean? That means he wanted to use a defense, and I wonder what his legal team thinks of this. He wanted to use as a defense that his legal team sucked. They didn't do a good job, so he should get another trial. That's what he wanted to use for a defense. The only problem with that is prior to the trial starting, Alvin Bragg asked him to clarify whether or not he was going to use that as a defense. They asked them very specifically so that Alvin Bragg could prepare properly for that defense should it be used. Donald Trump said he would not use that defense. So now all of a sudden, Donald Trump is saying, now I can't do it. Well, you chose not to do it, motherfucker. Deal with it. Now, it is unclear exactly what advice of counsel's defense Trump wanted to use. And advice of counsel's defense is a claim that a potentially criminal act was done because an attorney advised it was illegal or necessary. That's the other part of this. The other part of it is what he wanted to do was all his crimes. He wanted to say, well, a lawyer told me that I could do it, so not my fault. It's his fault. And this is what Donald Trump is famous for, passing the buck to somebody else, blaming somebody else. It's funny. There's never been an occasion where Donald Trump has said, yeah, no, I fucked up. It's always somebody else. But that option was taken away from him in the beginning. Now, Trump is charged with falsification of business records for an alleged hush payment. We know all that. Trump pleaded not guilty to all the charges. Now, much of the trial was dominated by testimony from Michael Cohen, Trump's former attorney and fixer, who facilitated the payments. He implicated Trump at the heart of the scheme, while the defense sought to paint Cohen as a pathological liar whose words were meaningless. Again, they didn't tell us anything we didn't know. Michael Cohen is a slime bucket. There is no question about it. But unfortunately for Donald Trump and the legal team, everything Michael Cohen said was corroborated by more credible witnesses. Stormy Daniels, David Pecker. They don't mention that at all because it doesn't fit their narrative. The prosecution, for their part, sought to establish testimony and chains of evidence independent of Cohen, only using him to tie up the facts with an overarching narrative. So, as much as they want you to believe that Michael Cohen was the star witness and it all hinged on him, well, the prosecution knew that wasn't going to work, and they never intended to do that. He may have been the star witness in the fact that he was up there the longest and he tied everything together. But all these things were laid out before Michael Cohen even spoke. He was there just to corroborate what was already said, and those other witnesses corroborated what Michael Cohen said. This is a tough situation for the defense. They really can't just discount Michael Cohen and try to win. That's not going to work. And besides, Michael Cohen behaved properly, and when they went through the defense prosecution and the defense case, and they talked to Robert Costello, Michael Cohen didn't blow it up for the prosecution. Robert Costello broke it up, exploded that case for the defense. We found out that Robert Costello was never Michael Cohen's lawyer. Michael Cohen thought he was a plant from Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani. We found out that that was the case, that he was a slimy piece of shit. He had trouble behaving on the stand. He was admonished by the judge. So as much as he was going to be the one that would be the linchpin and nail Michael Cohen, because that's what they thought they were going to do, it did just the opposite. It proved that their case was thin, if not non-existent. Robert Costello blew up the case for the defense. Now, with the closing arguments complete, the trial will move on to the jury deciding the facts of the case and rendering a verdict. Some legal experts have suggested that the claims made by Trump's defense team in closing are a sign that they are bracing for a conviction. Yeah, I think they knew that coming into this. They couldn't possibly believe that they had a chance. The only person that they thought they might have a chance would have been Donald Trump, and he pushed the defense legal team to do the things they did in spite of the fact it made them look stupid and caused them to be admonished by the judge. Why they agreed to do that, I have no fucking clue. What they're going to do after the fact, how their careers are going to look after the fact, I can't imagine it's going to be very good. I just don't think it will be. Donald Trump will be convicted of multiple charges. At this point, they don't have any plans of actually winning. The only thing they can hope for right now is a hung jury. And I know a lot of people are whining and crying, oh, it could be a hung jury. All we need is one Trumplified. You know how rare that is, that we get a hung jury? It's very rare. And in this particular case, if you look at the people who were on the jury and what their occupations were, they all seem to be reasonable and intelligent folks. You put them in a courtroom for that amount of time, listening to the most egregious shit that they've heard. You really think one person is going to stand up to the 11 others with all that peer pressure and push back and make this jury deliberation go on and on and on and on and on? I don't think so. I think when people say that there's going to be a hung jury, these are people that are just looking for things to worry about. And there are plenty of those folks out there. As I've said, when the convictions come in, I can't wait to get on TikTok and start laughing at the Democrats and the Republicans that insisted that he was going to be exonerated, that he was going to be acquitted on all accounts. Now, I will tell you this, it is possible. I was talking with Eric about it on the show yesterday. He's got 34 felony charges against him. It is conceivable that he doesn't get convicted of all of them. Now, a lot of people think that this is a winner-take-all type situation. He either gets convicted of all of them or he gets convicted of none of them. That is not true. Just not true. He could get convicted of 10 of them and have have the other decisions not made or found innocent or whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter. He doesn't have to be convicted of all of them. He only has to be convicted of the ones he's being convicted of. But like I told Eric, it's a documents case. If one is guilty, they all must have to be guilty because they're all in the same vein. We don't know how this is going to play out. The only thing I'm pretty confident of is there will be convictions. And whether there's 2 of them or 22 of them, it doesn't make a difference. Those convictions are going to take a toll on Donald Trump's psyche. His future is going to take a toll on the people who support him, the perception around Donald Trump. It is going to change the dynamic completely of Donald Trump's campaign. That's what it's going to do. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about some other dirtball dipshits. Talking about Samuel Alito and his little wife, Martha Ann Alito. Now, Martha is the one that's been blamed for putting the upside down flag in her yard on January 21st, January 17th of 2021, 11 days after the insurrection. And that upside down flag signifies support for the people who committed the insurrection. Alito blamed it on his wife, and she was just distraught. It was a distress call because the neighbors were picking on me. Well, it's interesting. As you go a little deeper and you hear from some of those neighbors, you might be surprised to find that the story is a little different. 2 former neighbors of U.S. Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito and his wife, Martha Ann Alito, said that contrary to the justice's claims, Martha Ann was the instigator of an ugly encounter in which one of the neighbors used the word, I'll just say, see you next Tuesday. My wife is definitely against me saying that word. And I'll swear with the best of them, but I'll back off of that one. There's certain words I won't say. Earlier this month, the New York Times reported that 3 days before Joe Biden's inauguration on January 17th, an upside-down flag flew in the Alito's front yard, as we know. According to the U.S. flag code, Old Glory should only be flown in such a way as to indicate dire distress in instance of extreme danger to life or property. The upside-down flag became a preferred symbol of the pro-Donald Trump election deniers who believe the 2020 contest was rigged. Moreover, the Alitos also flew another flag popular with election deniers, displaying it at their beach house in New Jersey. Soon, the Supreme Court is expected to rule on whether Trump can be held criminally accountable for his efforts to overturn the election. That's still yet to come. Now, in response to the report, Justice Alito claimed his wife raised the upside-down flag after a dispute with a neighbor. However, the neighbor says her run-ins with Martha Ann Alito happened after the flag was taken down. The Times interviewed Emily Baden and her husband, who was granted anonymity because his employer requires him to keep political views private. The Badens, who were boyfriend and girlfriend at the time, temporarily moved during the pandemic to Alexandria, Virginia, where Baden's mother lives. Now, the police in Fairfax County, Virginia, received an unusual phone call on February 15th, 2021, well after the flag was taken down. A young couple claimed that they were being harassed by the wife of Supreme Court Justice Alito. Somebody in a position of authority needs to talk to her and make her stop, said the 36-year-old man making the complaint, according to a recording of a call reviewed by the New York Times. The officer on the line responded that there was little the police could do. Yelling was not a crime. But we certainly should start calling her Karen, if nothing else. Now, the report notes there are differences between Justice Alito's account and Baden's, the latter of whom provided a text supporting her version of the story, in addition to the documented call to the police. For instance, the justice told Fox News that his wife hoisted the flag in response to Mrs. Baden's vulgar insult. Seems like an interesting or weird response. A text message and the police call corroborated by Fairfax County authorities indicate, however, that the name calling took place on February 15th, weeks after the inverted flag was taken down. Well, now, it sounds like Mr. and Mrs. Alito have a little trouble with the truth. They're fucking liars. The justice later elaborated in an interview with Fox News, saying that in January 2021, a neighbor on the block displayed a vulgar anti-Trump sign near where children wait for the school bus. Please, motherfucker. Mrs. Alito complained to the neighbor. Things escalated, and the neighbor put up a sign personally addressing Miss Alito and blaming her for the January 6th attacks. While the Alitos were on a neighborhood walk, there were words between Mrs. Alito and a male at the home with the sign. The justice said the man used vulgar language, including the C word. Now, from what I hear about Mrs. Alito, it may have been vulgar, it may have been uncalled for, but it certainly sounds accurate. So we got that going for us. Mrs. Alito was distraught and hung the flag upside down. Why would that be the response? Your husband is a Supreme Court justice. Somebody calls you the C word. And the only thing you can think of is I'm going to raise a flag and it's going to be upside down and that'll fucking show them. Please, please stop lying. Now, Baden said after Biden won the election, she placed a yard sign on her lawn saying Biden on one side and fuck Trump on the other. While walking her dog, Baden said Martha Ann Alito thanked her for taking the sign down, but in fact it had merely been blown over. Baden told her the sign would remain, which is her right, apparently. I mean, it sounds like Mrs. Alito was the snowflake here, and we know how Republicans hate fucking snowflakes. I just think Justice Alito and his wife, Justice Clarence Thomas and his wife, they're all just fucking bad people. And the fact that they have any power and position is a fucking shame. And we have to do something when we have the power to do it to make sure that stops. They are an embarrassment to this country. They're a cancer on our judicial system, and they're destroying the Supreme Court. All right. We got one more, and this kind of is just desserts, I guess you would call it. Jenna Ellis, you remember her? She was one of Donald Trump's lawyers that didn't do well after she was done with him. Jenna Ellis has agreed to a 3-year suspension of her Colorado law license for her felony guilty plea in the Georgia election case and urged those still clinging to the belief of a stolen election to reconsider. Honest to goodness, I think that Jenna Ellis got lucky that she didn't lose it permanently. 3 years is a long time, but she should have lost it permanently. Last August, a Georgia grand jury indicted former President Donald Trump and 18 others, including former New York City Mayor and Trump attorney Rudy Giuliani, former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, former Assistant Attorney General Jeffrey Clark, and several lawyers who have represented Trump and his campaign, including Ellis, Sidney Powell, Kenneth Chesebro, and John Eastman, for their alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Yeah, how have all of them done? How are they doing now? Not so well, I would venture to say. Now, former Georgia bail bondsman Scott Hall pled guilty in late September, followed by attorneys Powell and Chesebro in October, and then Ellis had her own tearful turn in court in late October for her own guilty plea. In an apology statement that was part of her plea deal, Ellis attempted to frame her involvement as a rookie lawyer who foolishly relied on more experienced lawyers. Yeah, blame it on somebody else, but admitted that she had made multiple false statements, failing to make sure that the facts the other lawyers alleged to be true were in fact true, and failed to do my due diligence during the frenetic pace of attempting to challenge the 2020 election. She said, if I knew what I know now, I would have declined to represent Donald Trump in these post-election challenges, claiming she looked back on the whole experience with deep remorse. Let's be honest. You're a rookie lawyer. You got the chance to represent the president because he couldn't afford a real fucking lawyer, and you jumped at the chance because you thought it might make you money or give you proper PR. Well, you fucked around and found out, and now you're sorry. You're sorry you got caught. That's the only thing you're sorry about. On Tuesday afternoon, a Colorado State Bar disciplinary judge approved a settlement between Ellis and the Colorado's Office of Attorney Regulation Council to suspend her license for 3 years. In the court's opinion, the judge wrote that Ellis's actions included multiple examples of significant actual harm, especially by how she undermined the American public's confidence in the presidential election process. The judge did take into consideration arguments by 2 government watchdog groups that pushed for Ellis to be disbarred and noted that disbarment is the presumptive action here for her misconduct, but in the end was lenient because her criminal culpability was due to her conduct as an accessory, not as a principal. Now, in a letter submitted to the court as part of the deal to let her avoid disbarment, Ellis wrote that she was choosing to take responsibility for my actions and my association with the harm caused to the nation by the post-election activities of 2020 on behalf of then President Donald Trump. I was wrong to be involved, she continued, and urged those who still believe the 2020 election was stolen to reconsider. Yeah. Fucked around and found out. Jenna Ellis. Think about that. Think of how many lawyers Donald Trump has had, and think about the wreckage he's left their lives in. You would think a lawyer with a big time degree would have better sense, better common sense, better logic, better understanding of what's going on, and would maybe step away from something that is so clearly a lie and illegal. But these people were greedy. They're sorry now, but they're only sorry because they got caught. All right, we are going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen. Hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.